economic development. We are super glad that you're here tonight, that you care about economic development and the services that we provide. I just want to ask, how many of you remember last year in December when Ulster County was featured in National Geographic magazine? Right? Pretty amazing. Ulster County was featured in National Geographic magazine because of the county's ability to balance conservation and the environment with the needs of our business and economic development and growth. And we're able to do that because of the leadership of Ulster County Executive Mike Hine. So right now I would like to introduce him to you tonight.
That's very nice, by the way. First off, thank you very much for coming. Hopefully, when you walk out of tonight, you have a full understanding of really all aspects of what's available when it comes to economic development in Ulster County. For me, though, it's kind of an overarching issue. I think to myself, when we talk about economic development, it's about making sure that we have an incredible quality of life for the people who live here, that we help existing businesses who are struggling back on their feet, that we help existing businesses that are successful expand, and that we welcome new businesses, especially if they're in alignment with what we as a community really want to see more of. Sustainable businesses that are strong and connected with the values that we all embrace here in Ulster County. So yes, the National Geographic was wonderful, and it did highlight some real clear goals that we have. That's to have a sustainable community, to make sure that economic development thrives. I also believe that you can balance fiscal responsibility with social responsibility. I think you can do those things. That's not always the most welcome thing in government, but the truth of the matter is I believe it's really possible, and that's why we focus on doing the right thing when it comes to make sure programming is done, when it comes to economic development, but also that we control property taxes. There's a very real situations, and that is that property taxes in our state are high. We have to recognize that that's a reality. So the question from my perspective is, how do we make sure that we don't tax businesses out of existence that we desperately want to be here? And so we continue to focus on that. The property tax levy at the county is less than it was all the way back in 2010. I could not be more proud of that. That happened by partnerships with extraordinary people from our business community, from inside the county government, from partners in the legislature. I know Jim Maloney is joining us here today. Laura Pettit, a newly elected and re-elected county legislator, is joining us as well. We truly are fortunate to have people in the government that really are working across party lines and really just focus on what the right thing to do is for a community. So when we come together and we have these kinds of discussions, hopefully you feel free. It should be a free-flowing kind of thing, rather than getting tied up in the weeds of IDA, EDC, and a whole host of other alphabet soup. I think it is important, though, that everybody understand that it's the overarching goal of helping people who are in business, who are trying every single day to be able to participate in the American dream, that we help them thrive. That's the kind of welcoming community we want to have. We want to be able to grow jobs in our community. As the county executive, that's the kind of place I want to not only live, but represent. Tourism is a huge portion of what we do. It's a $535 million portion of our economy. It's a big deal. Agriculture, another huge portion. Holding on to traditional farmland is important. It's important culturally in our community, but it's also important from an economics perspective. We're seeing a rebirth of agriculture throughout Ulster County. It's very exciting. Another $500 million part of our economy. I also want to touch very quickly on the film industry. We have an opportunity to do something amazing here. And tax policy is not always the sexiest conversation you can possibly have, but there was a reality. And that was that when it comes to films in our area, it was always exciting. There'd be a film shot here or a film shot there, and we'd see a movie star here or there, and how wonderful was that? But traditionally, they were small independent films, $300,000, $400,000 films, and that's what we were seeing. Well, there was a reason we weren't seeing larger films, and it wasn't because we didn't have decision makers in the entertainment industry here. We had plenty of them. Writers, directors, and a whole host of other people who make the decisions on where things get shot. Live here, love it here, want to be able to work here, and they understand that there's an enormous opportunity. But they also know that the economics didn't work. That was the bottom line. The economics simply did not work. Now, there was an upstate film tax credit program available. That post-production film tax credit was important. It was great for all of upstate New York, except for we were excluded. Not just Ulster County, but Ulster, Dutchess, Sullivan, and Orange were excluded. Now, I can't explain to you why we were excluded, but I can tell you this. It was devastating to being able to attract businesses. And as we brought films to our community, it's much more than just, say, a simple film and a one-time shot. It's also about, as you see Netflix and a whole host of new media taking place, the need for content is exploding. And so it's about having television series shot here, and a whole host of other post-production work done here. Bring tech jobs, it brings construction jobs, it brings a whole host of other real high-paying quality jobs to your community. But we were boxed out. And so we began to fight extremely hard. I found a great partner in Aileen Gunther. If you don't know her, she's an assemblywoman from the Sullivan County area. She fought. We got it passed. We got it passed in the Assembly. We got it passed in the Senate. And when the governor signed it, it brought a 10% post-production tax credit to our community, and it was game-changing. To put in context what that meant, we're 50% up year over year. 50% up, and we're seeing the size of the productions that are happening in our area drastically improve. But I think the one that I love to be able to talk about is just because it was so poignant. Normally in government, if you do something that's meaningful, and it makes it wait about 3 or 4 or 5 years for it to actually get its feet in the ground. The truth of the matter is I got a phone call. We were probably 3 months into it, and it was for those of you who are from Kingston, you remember when they did a production called Departures? Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones. I am the only person I think that has not seen Game of Thrones. Maisie, you haven't seen it either? So, okay, there's 2. 3, 4. We have a small cult here. I like it. It's not good.
Winter is coming.
Some sort of, I have to get some downtime to do that. So an extraordinary actress, Ken Jeong from Hangover, and a bunch of other folks, and other really talented individuals were in this production. And the producer called my office and said, would you please come down and come to the set? Now, normally, when you hear those kinds of things, if you're an elected official, run the other way. Because what they're really going to ask you is, can you bring 300 buses in? Can you shut down 90 streets? Can you do those kinds of things? But that's not what it was. He just wanted to tell me personally the reality. He said, this film was scheduled to shoot in South Africa. The rand to US dollar exchange rate was so strong, it just made perfect sense. And we're in a business that's completely mobile. We can be anywhere. That's why lots of it gets shot in Vancouver or Georgia and a whole host of other places that have incentive packages that simply work for them. They were scheduled to shoot in South Africa. He said, because the film tax credit was passed, we immediately changed gears, shot it here, and we're going to drop $6 million in your community in the next 3 weeks. That's how big of a deal it is. And so it's, again, more than just those individual film projects. It's about making sure that we have the kinds of crews available locally. Since we have to be able to support those as well. Right now we have crew to support one major production at a time. We need to have more people. That's where Stockade works and Upcoast Project can really come into play. Again, it's very exciting what is potentially going on in that process. Mayor Stuart Masterson is a wonderful friend and really a friend to the community. If we're able to put that project together, we will have a training facility to be able to grow the size of our workforce in that area. Again, continuing to make it so that it simply functions. It's exciting. Because when we get this right, I firmly believe this sector can exceed tourism, it can exceed our agriculture. It's that big if we get it right because of our proximity to the metro New York area and because of the economics. I have now wasted far too much of your time. I have had the privilege of being able to be the county executive in this place for 8 years. I want to tell you what economic development means to me in real world terms. When I first became the county executive, unemployment in Ulster County was 8.5%. It was devastating to watch friends and neighbors who simply couldn't find a job. And the truth is now, with unemployment now in the 4.25% in the county range, we're seeing drastic changes in the number and in the quality of jobs. It's transforming. I've watched uptown Kingston go from as a child, it was booming, to completely dead, a place where you could buy any building in uptown Kingston for almost nothing. And to now, I don't know if you can find a spot in uptown Kingston to rent. I know you can't find a place to park. And I'm excited about what this means long term. Last year, through the state CFA process, we were able to deliver $5.5 million just to Kingston. You've seen the $10 million DRI project for uptown, and we're the only people that have an uptown-downtown project. It's very exciting about what that's going to mean long term, and we're dedicated to not just a portion of the city, but to the whole city. As the county executive, what you may not know is we are dedicating over $11 million to Midtown specifically. So there's a lot of things going on right now that are going to lead to a stronger and better economy locally. I'm very excited about what that means. So as business owners, as community leaders, and really as fellow citizens, hopefully what you take away from today is answers to your questions so you better understand all that goes on, all that's available, and hopefully you become ambassadors. It's an amazing place. I'm a huge, huge fan. And I also understand that it's our people that make it really amazing. So thank you again for the opportunity to say a few words. Hopefully you've asked every question you could possibly have about economic development. If they're really hard, believe me, Suzanne can answer it. If they're really easy, she'll follow up to me. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm grateful that the county executive was able to join us tonight because it really sets the stage for economic development. It really, he sets the tone from the top, and so we're really grateful for that here. Our agenda, which it looks like a lot of you have in front of you, I wanted to talk for a few minutes about the framework, Ulster Tomorrow, which happened in 2009. It was an enormous undertaking by, I think, 150 volunteers on 10 different committees to set the framework of how we should be delivering economic development in Ulster County. Then I'm going to introduce you to my staff who have left, Jim Wiedemann and Evelyn Heimbach. We're really blessed. They're both incredible. And we're going to talk about the different services. I know a lot of you have come to learn about pilots. So I'm going to save that for last to keep you all here. So we're going to start with business counseling services and site selection services, and then financing and incentives. Before we get into this, though, I just wanted to really recognize Legislator Maloney. He is the chair of the legislature's Economic Development Committee. He's also, along with Ken Cornell, who's standing over here, on the Ulster County Economic Development Alliance. And so those are really amazing partners in economic development. And if you guys haven't seen Your Business Here, our economic development guide, you should pick it up on the way out. This is instrumental. It explains all the different services. What we're going to talk about tonight, it's all in here. So if you have any questions, this is a great primer. And we have this because Legislator Maloney said, you know, this would be a great tool, let's create one. And we worked with Luminary, Brian and Sam, who are in the front row. So it was a great collaboration, and we've been getting a lot of positive feedback on it. Okay, so with that, let me just set the stage a little bit. Ulster Tomorrow. In 2007, 2008, before the county executive took office and the legislature was running the county, there was 38 something different departments, and they were all run by different people, and they reported to a different legislative committee. There was no one person in charge, and there was UCDC, the Ulster County Development Corporation, the IDA, and things were scattered. And the thought was, let's bring everybody together. Let's bring the public sector and the private sector and the government and professors and the college and Brookco and the nonprofits, and bring everybody together and figure out how best to do Ulster tomorrow. And I'm not going to sit here and read to you all these 12 strategies, but basically just wanted to say that the brightest minds got together in Ulster County and said it's really important that we focus the economic development process, that it's not scattered all over the county, that there's one office and there's one place that's in charge, one front door for economic development. A business comes to Ulster County, there is one front door. Right now, it's my office, it's in the county executive's office, it's 3 doors down from his office, so if we need him, if I need Jim or the legislature, we're here. But that came from Ulster Tomorrow, and it's done, and that's how we're functioning. It also talked about strengthening key industries. The county executive talked about film, he also talked about agriculture and tourism. Manufacturing is another really important industry in Ulster County, and so it used to be these big manufacturers. Now we're looking at niche manufacturing. So Ulster Tomorrow is a framework. It's not a concrete set of commandments, but it's manufacturing remains important. But instead of it being the Zumtobels and the Saluxes, like the big lighting manufacturers, now we're seeing light bright neon and Black Creek Mercantile and the small manufacturers and niche manufacturers, and also food and beverage manufacturing. We're all excited, I think, about the craft beverage industry. Nobody loves cideries, wineries, distilleries, and breweries more than me. So I just wanted to sort of put this in context. As we were just saying, the county executive designed the Office of Economic Development to be the one-stop shop for businesses. So any business that is interested in Ulster County should call our office, and we'll help them to the best of our ability. I think that we work with the towns. There's 20 towns, 3 villages, and 1 city in Ulster County, and they each have their own personality and their own things, the businesses that they want and don't want. And so we try to make the business, we try to help them to find a home in a place in Ulster County where they're wanted. So that's not always as straightforward as it may seem, but that is our goal. This is just listing some of the different, nobody comes to our office and, or people don't come and I don't say, here's a menu of our services. Because people have different needs, and what do they care if I do grant writing, if they're a small business that's never going to be eligible for a grant? Or what do they care about utilities if, Central Hudson isn't an issue? So the goal when they come is to figure out what the needs are, and then to meet their needs. I didn't talk specifically about the City of Kingston because they're here tonight, and they're going to talk as well. But we partner all the time. The City of Kingston has a revolving loan fund. The county has a revolving loan fund. If you're a business in the City of Kingston, you're going to apply to their revolving loan fund first, but we might work together on it. So it's really a matter of finding out the business needs and then working to address them. Some of the things that we do, community engagement, one of them, this is what we do, training and education. We hold workshops and seminars and conferences in order to help everybody. A lot of the business counseling and whatnot is one-on-one. People call us and ask for help. But we try to go out and be proactive for people who might not specifically ask for help, but who could use the help nonetheless. So I'm going to introduce next, Tim Wiedemann is going to talk to you about community engagement and also about the business counseling and services that are offered.
Great, thanks, Suzanne. So I think I'll just dive a little deeper into some of the stuff Suzanne has already mentioned. Community engagement is an important part of what we do because, as Suzanne alluded to and as the county executive alluded to, economic development doesn't happen in a vacuum. And the right kinds of businesses and projects for one community might not be the same as what they are in another community. And so, the luxury and the challenge of a county is that it's an assembly of lots of smaller communities. And so we try to get out and understand what those communities' values are so that we can understand if a project comes to us that wants to do traditional manufacturing, is there a place in Ulster County where that makes sense? If they want to do technology, is there a place in Ulster County that makes sense? And so I'll just give you a little bit of examples. Howie Slotnick from the town of Esopus is here. Howie is the chair of the town's Economic Development Committee. And basically, since I joined the county, I've been helping the Economic Development Committee. And so I sit in on the meetings as an advisor. They've been working on an update, the beginning stages of an update to the comprehensive plan in the town of Esopus. And that's obviously a really important guiding document for a lot of land use decisions in a community. And as such, it also has an impact on economic development, and businesses are directly affected by that update to the comprehensive plan. And so most recently, they did a survey of residents to find out what their values were. It's a perfect example of the kind of input that's really important to us, so we understand what does the community of Esopus, and even subtly within the community in different pockets of the town, whether it's the hamlet of Port Ewan or somewhere farther down south towards the town of Lloyd, what are there differences in what people want to see happen. And so that's been a really valuable process, and I appreciate the committee's willingness to have me there and listen as we share our insights, and it's been a good process. And so in addition, we get engaged in a lot of countywide planning efforts, and I'll give you one other example. There's a program through New York State called the Brownfield Opportunity Area Program, which is designed to help address and alleviate blight in areas where there's contamination or perceived contamination. And so there are pockets of places throughout the county where there were old industrial uses or other uses that may be contaminated sites. And we probably all know these. We've driven by them somewhere in the county, places that just look sad. They haven't thrived in the last 50, 60 years. And so the program is to provide additional tax incentives and technical assistance to help figure out how to redevelop those sites. And so we're working through the county planning office and our office assisting that effort to do a countywide brownfield opportunity area study that'll identify pockets of either perceived contamination or actual contamination, and then advance in partnership with local communities the nomination process that eventually gets them to additional tax credits and incentives to redevelop those sites. So it's a planning project, but it's one that has great bearing on economic development in the county, and so we see it as crucial to the work that we do. We do a lot of other stuff, and I think one of the big things that I love, because I live in the city of Kingston, is that we get to work really closely with the city of Kingston as well. And the image that's up on the slide is from the DRI announcement. I was grateful to be involved in the city's grant application for the DRI last year, and then again this year, providing some guidance on the economic development issues related to that application, and excited to see that project continuing now. So the community engagement shapes and guides the work that we do, sharing with us the values of each community so that we can help to promote those through the work that we do in economic development. And so it's kind of the big picture engagement. But on a daily basis, we are working one-on-one, all three of us, and even Bernadette, our administrative assistant, working one-on-one with individual business owners or potential business owners in the county. And so we provide really hands-on, one-on-one support. And we really see this as, I think we all share the belief that it's an interpersonal relationship. You have to get to know the business owner and what their goals are, just like the communities. You need to know what their values are and goals are. You need to know what the business's values and goals are. And so, we have lots of stories. Suzanne's been here the longest of the three of us, so she has most of them. But good stories of people calling in the middle of the night with a business challenge and being able to help them solve that challenge. And it's part of what makes it exciting to work in this office. And so we do a lot of work from helping with business planning, but I'll give another shout out to Sam Kendall. Where'd you go, Sam? In the middle of the room here, from SBDC, the Mid-Hudson Small Business Development Center, which is a tremendous resource for businesses in the county and for people thinking of starting a business. Sam is one of their counselors and has helped numerous businesses develop really great business plans, which is the starting point. There's no way around it. You need a business plan. And Sam does great work with businesses. And that makes our job easier. Then we can take that and run with it and say, okay, your business plan is laid out, your needs, your goals, and where you are and where you want to get. And now we can help you think about what's the financing that you need, what's the regulatory approvals that you're going to need, and help you work through that process. And so we do, as Suzanne mentioned, training and education sessions, both small and large. We've done small workshops, one-on-one. We do webinars. We did one last year for restaurant owners. We've done larger conferences. And so this is our opportunity to kind of reach that broader audience. And in addition, we really see ourselves as not the gatekeeper, but the in-between person between county agencies. Like the Office of Employment and Training is a great resource, especially as the county executive pointed out, with the relatively low unemployment rate, there is a challenge for businesses, which is that it's really hard to find employees and hard to keep employees in this kind of labor market. And so our partnership with the Office of Employment and Training helps us to identify what the needs are for businesses within the community, and then help support those solutions that can get the employees, the workforce and human capital that businesses here need to thrive. And we aren't talking a lot about our efforts to attract businesses to the county, because we want to talk to you all here about existing businesses in the county, but we also have a marketing campaign to attract businesses to Ulster County that are looking for a place like this, a place that has tremendous quality of life, lower cost of living and doing business, and really a really tight-knit community of people doing really exciting and amazing things. And so in that process, we also get a chance to highlight some of the exciting businesses that are here for sometimes their customers, but also just the general population down in the larger New York City market or elsewhere in the country, sharing the story about what it means to be a business in Ulster County, which is an exciting place to be. And thank you to Luminary and Chronogram and Upstater and Upstate House for helping to share that message. So I think that's it about these three topics. I'm going to turn it over to Evelyn, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the other services, including site assistance.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Heinbeck, so the third member of our four-person team. Bernadette couldn't be here tonight, but think of all of us as a resource. So when we talk about site assistance, I think similar to what you've heard before, it's not just about going through the real estate listing and saying like, here's this place for you, or if you're coming from out of state, say like, here's this one town, you should go there now, good luck. It's really about creating a product. It's creating a product for businesses that are looking at Ulster County, and that's from workforce to the quality of life. Is there a site? Does the site have the utilities? Can we bring in the utilities? Does it have the ability to support that if somebody's actually looking to relocate in Ulster County? But in the same way, it's working with businesses that are here, that are looking to grow, to figure out where's that next site for your business? So for example, like I'm working with Fruition Chocolate right now that's in Shokin. The business is looking to grow, but where do you grow? Where is that next home? Where is the right fit for that type of business? In what community does it fit? How big does that site need to be so that it doesn't break the bank? How do we really help that business grow? That site selection. It's thinking about that product, us as Ulster County to the outside, or if you're selling a product, how do we help you be successful in that environment and be able to sell out to where you need to go? So that's where tag team is also into business counseling, where you kind of go, it's not about the building, it's about does this building fit for you? Do you fit into that community? And can we help you be successful? And that includes also if somebody has property, thinking through how do you market that property? Does it make sense to develop that site? There are brownfield sites out there that don't really suit themselves to actually being developed. I can't put up a residential housing complex on a site that has tetrachlorine in it. Just doesn't make sense. So what do you do instead? Does it make sense to actually do something completely different with it? Reach out to some of the environmental organizations to say, like, what do we do with it? Can we bring it back to life? Or do we have a business use for it? So it's thinking through those type of issues as well. And really kind of like being ahead of the curve in terms of saying, like, what do we want to have in the county and how do we bring the businesses here? That's from just answering a request from New York State about a business that's looking for 100 acres to bring in an indoor farming business in here that would create 100+ jobs. As much as saying, like, I have my current cooperage business and I want to grow and I need, instead of 1,200 square foot, I need 3,000 square foot. That's getting a call from a deli owner in New York City that's saying, like, I would love to set up an Italian deli somewhere in Ulster County, but where is that somewhere? And thinking through kind of what that takes. That's working with community compost and saying, like, where do you want to grow from where you are now? And what does that mean? But also in the same way, it might mean saying no to that biodiesel manufacturer that wants to come in, where we say, like, no, we don't really want that in Ulster County because of its environmental impact. So it's making those type of decisions and thinking through that, and that's part of economic development as well.
Just before you stop, can you tell a little bit about your work in Saugerties with the manufacturers?
Yeah, so some of the other efforts we do is in the same way of actually, it started with looking at some of the different manufacturing businesses in the area. How do we attract more manufacturers to what we already have? The starting point for that was really understanding what do the current manufacturers that are successful, what do they need, and why are they successful, and how can we build onto that? And it's one of the things we realized when we was together with the town of Saugerties. We sort of literally did just a round of just meeting every business, sitting down, finding out what are the challenges. One of the things we heard across the board was, how do we get better bus transportation? And there's people that could come and work for us if they had a bus. So it was really trying to figure out how many people actually need the bus, how many would ride it, but what times. That's part of economic development. It was also realizing there was a perception by the businesses that the local schools weren't supporting them, that the locals, that there weren't any programs for them. So we actually initiated a roundtable where we brought together the manufacturers, together with the high school, with the different SUNY schools, with BOCES. Everybody sat around one table and just talked. Tried to figure out what are each other's challenges. How do we make manufacturing sexy to high schoolers? How do we, those are part of the things. Or it's thinking through, how do we get people to know that the manufacturers out there, that they're actually hiring? Because if you're actually going up to Saugerties right now, there's literally every single business has a sign up saying jobs, looking for people to hire. And they're desperately trying to find good candidates. These are high-paying jobs. Those are actually living wage jobs, but we got to get the word out there. And so part of that was working with the schools, making that happen. But in the same way, too, was saying that if these businesses want to train people coming in, how do we make that happen? It can't be just the business, so can we use the schools for that? And so we're working on joint programs for that. Just this Friday now, we have actually a follow-up meeting where we're all going to meet again at the high school in this case, and actually sit down as part of the transition meeting to figure out how do we bring more high schoolers into manufacturing, how do we get them interested, what is the school doing while the high school education is going on, and it's outside of P-Tech, just thinking through what are the possibilities. The high school created sort of like a technology training program, and now it's thinking through, does it fit with the businesses, and how do we actually bring those kids out into getting those jobs? And in the same way, then like also figuring out what else do we need, and how else do we kind of close those gaps? So those are all things that we do on a sort of day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
This is Tim with Lisa Proctor from Organic Nectar. She recently got a revolving loan from the county to help her business, and you can see they both look really happy about that done. So I hope, I know the impetus of this meeting tonight was pilots, and what are pilots, and why do we need them and whatnot. But before we got to that, I really wanted to just sort of put into context, businesses will come to us and they'll say, I need a business plan, or I need a site, or I need a lot of different things that they need that we help them with, and pilots is one of those things. With financing and incentives, a lot of what we do, businesses small and large come and they say they need money. A lot of times they say, is there a grant? Is there a grant for women-owned businesses? Is there a grant for minority-owned businesses? And unless you're in Ellenville right now, because the county executive allocated, and the legislature allocated the Ellenville million, Ellenville is the only place in Ulster County right now that has grants for small businesses. But what we do have are introductions to banks. Again, what we don't offer is a laundry list of all of the banks in Ulster County, because the banks have their own portfolios and they change at different times. So if you came to me today, I might, and I'm always going to give you 3, but if you came to me today, I might say, talk to the Bank of Greene County, talk to Ulster Savings, talk to a federal credit union. Because those are the banks that are sort of hungriest, or more willing to do riskier loans. Next week or next month, it may totally change. It's definitely going to totally change. So, whenever somebody comes and they're looking for capital, we make a recommendation to banks based on what the banks are looking to do at that time. In addition, the county and a number of our communities, like the city of Kingston, Esopus, and John Gum and New Paltz and a few others, have revolving loans. They're low interest loans that are for businesses who either can't get traditional financing, or who a bank wants to partner. So, a bank will say, well, maybe we'll take a piece. If you take a piece, we learned the hard way that the revolving loan fund committee in Ulster County really wants collateral. So, it's not the easiest money in the world, but it's taxpayer money. And so we're not giving away taxpayer money to businesses that we don't think are going to be able to pay it back. And if they can't, then we have collateral. So understanding all of that and helping each business with their needs is what we're trying to do. In addition, grant assistance. A lot of you are probably familiar with the consolidated funding application. It's New York State's big, every once a year, May or June until the end of July or August, New York State, all of their state agencies put out their grant money at one time with one application. And that's really our busy season. Our staff, we don't vacation those months. We work around the clock. On July 23rd, 2015, Zach Lewis and his team bought the 311 Wall Street building, the old Woolworth building. We had 6 days to put together an application for them to get a grant from New York State. 6 days from the date they bought it, we got them $1 million. So, during that time period, we work our butts off to get as much money. We work with nonprofits, we work with for-profits, and we work with municipalities to bring home the money. This year, the DRI was a huge effort. The city of Kingston did a great job, but there were 10 or 15 applications from around the county. And so Tim was integral on that team with the city of Kingston to help to formulate the application, and then I represented the county executive on the board that makes the decision about who gets it. So we worked it from every angle to get that $10 million. We also, throughout the year, work on other types of grants. Ulster Green ARC called not that long ago. They were looking for, I think, a heating system or an air conditioning system. We helped them to find a grant. So we do grant work throughout the year as well. The non-bank financing I talked about, and then the tax incentives. So the reason you're all here. Ulster County has an industrial development agency. The industrial development agencies were created by New York State in the 70s, and there's about 60-something of them in New York State. Like New York City has one for the 5 boroughs, but on Long Island there's certain towns that have their own. I think the city of Newburgh has its own. So the industrial development agencies have the ability to, Evelyn, can you hand out those? Yeah, thanks. The industrial development agencies have the ability to do a sales tax exemption, which is if you're renovating, you would get all of your lumber and building materials as well as your fit up, your furniture and fixtures. You wouldn't pay sales tax. A mortgage tax exemption if you're buying a piece of property and you're going to have a mortgage. And then also the payment in lieu of taxes, pilot. So, actually, can I have one of those?
No. You know by heart.
I should know by heart. So, before I start to explain the handout, I just want to say that in order to work with the IDA, there's a fee. It's about 1% of your project. So unless you have a project that's going to be a minimum of $700,000 and more likely $1 or $2 or $3 million, you're not going to come to the IDA because the fees aren't going to be worth it. So this is a benefit that's for really big investments in our community. And those fees, that 1% fee, the IDA reinvests. So the IDA, this year they spent the fee money on supporting the Hudson Valley Film Commission, the Hudson Valley Agribusiness Development Corporation, which helps our farms, HVEDC, which is a 7-county economic development board, as well as they gave money to Galileo Technologies to work with Ulster Green ARC to fit up 8 incubator kitchens on Cornell Street in Midtown Kingston. So I think those are the organizations that got money this year. But every year, at the beginning of the year, they'll put out a call for projects and they'll ask applicants to apply, and they're looking to reinvest that money in organizations that help our business and to help our small businesses. So it's basically like Robin Hood. I just made this up in my head, but it is like Robin Hood. They are, taking the fees from the big businesses and spending it to help all of the small businesses throughout the county. So the way they do this is with the UTEP. The UTEP is the Uniform Tax Exemption Policy.
And what you're looking at is the matrix that we ask businesses to fill out to see if they're eligible. And the reason I want you all to have this is because there's been a lot of questions about what does the IDA incentivize and why, and how do these things happen. So the way that these were chosen, the IDA holds a public hearing once every few years, and they notify the whole county. We go to we go to Hardburg and Denning and places you did not know were Ulster County, places you didn't know were on this planet. But we go to all of them and we hang, we give their town supervisors and their clerks and everybody else, and we publish it in the newspapers, and we try to get as much input as possible about what the county should be incentivizing. And I know that the IDA members are willing to do that again. So if there's interest in changing what's being incentivized, it's something that the IDA members are willing to consider. So let's just take a minute and look at this, because what happens is you get points. You get points for the number of new jobs that you create. So the more new jobs you create, the more points you get. You get points for retaining jobs. So this is not just an incentive. This is not just incentives for new people. Some people say, well, why can't we get it? We've been here forever. Well, you can if you're doing the work that the county has chosen to incentivize. Current Ulster County businesses can also get these benefits. It's not just for newcomers. So it's new jobs, it's retained jobs, it's wages. These numbers here, the $19.59 to $24.08 and the $24.09 to $30 an hour, whatnot, those are pegged to Department of Labor wages. And so if you're paying a certain amount of wages, then you get more points. Same with construction. Are you paying prevailing wages to your construction workers? You get points. And are you hiring regional workforce? And when I think of the region, why aren't I talking to this? I'm losing my voice. There's a microphone next to me. When I think of the region, I think of Ulster County and the neighboring counties. So whether it's Dutchess or Putnam or Orange or Greene or Delaware, that's how I define regional workforce and local workforce. Is it environmentally sustainable? Is it on an existing industrial site or a brownfield? Is it a shovel-ready site or a designated business park? And are you doing something that's either LEED certified? Are you using solar? Are you geothermal? What are you doing that's environmentally sustainable? You get points for these things as well. And then community investment. We encourage projects that are within a quarter of a mile of public transportation, that are in an economically distressed area of the county, and that are in needed service or industry. I would say that most industries are needed. I can't think of anybody who's applied and we thought, oh, we don't need that. But I think that might be the only easy point on you. Then will you post your openings with our one-stop so that we can help people who need jobs to get jobs? Does at least 50% of the workforce need an advanced educational credential? And by that, it doesn't have to be a bachelor's or a master's degree. It can be a manufacturing certification. And then, are you providing workforce housing or senior or disabled housing? So these are the criteria. And what we do, this is online. You can do this worksheet and plug it in. It's going to give you a number. And then depending on the number that you get, you'll see at the bottom, if you get 6 or less points, you don't get anything. If you get 7 or 8 points, you get a 10-year pilot. If you get 9 to 11 points, you get a more generous 10-year pilot. And if you have 12 or more points, then you can get a 15-year pilot. The pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes. And the way it works is that you take a piece of property and there's the current taxes. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. They think that under a standard pilot, all the taxes are just wiped away. It's not. You're incentivizing the development. So the business will pay the current taxes going forward. So if there's a raw piece of land and the taxes are $25,000 and they put a $5 million business onto it, a $5 million building, the goal of the pilot is that it will go from the what did I say? 25, thank you. Up to the $5 million over a course of 10 or 15 years. So it doesn't wipe out the original, it gives the business a sense of stability, a sense of knowledge of what they can expect, and it incentivizes that development. And so over the course of time, you're gonna make the town and the taxpayers and everybody's gonna get more. I have an example that I'm gonna show you, but before I move to the next slide with the example, I just wanna say, we do annual site visits to each business that has a pilot, and we also require documentation. New York State requires documentation just about employees and wages. So whatever they tell us they're gonna do, if they don't do it, we get their documentation once a year and we can claw back. So the clawbacks aren't automatic. I mean, if something happened and they had a fire, and they're planning on rebuilding, the IDA might not choose a clawback. But the option of clawbacks is there, and it's a real carrot stick. I'm sorry, I'm starting to get a cold. So I'm doing the best I can here. I think I have one more slide. Yep, one more slide, and then I'm going to pass it on to the City of Kingston. Randall. Oh no, you're so sweet. Randall Leverett is an IDA board member who's actually here. I mean, this is our IDA Cares, and he's not only here, but he's here with cough drops. So,
seriously.
I'll let it come as soon as I'm done this slide. I'm coming for that cough drop. Okay, so I wanted to give you a real life example. And this is Simulate. Simulate is a manufacturer in Saugerties. They were located in Woodstock, New York, and they outgrew their space in 2005, and they could have left. They could have gone anywhere. We've had lots of businesses that needed to move and went somewhere else. So they found a site in Saugerties. They invested $5.3 million to establish an 80,000 square foot manufacturing plant. They manufacture medical and rescue worker training equipment. They got the sales tax savings of $190,000, the mortgage tax savings of $30,000, and the pilot, so over the 10 years, they got a benefit of $950,000. So we're talking $1 million benefit to this business. What they did is that they took over the former Wilbur's World of Golf. So a vacant site, they took that over. They retained 90 FTE, so FTE is full-time equivalent jobs. They added 22 new jobs since that, it says over 3 years, but during the course of the pilot, they added 22 new jobs. They raised the property value from $347,000 in 2005 to $2.9 million today. And now, because they're back on the property roll, they're paying $59,000 a year, which is the full taxes, and they will continue to pay that amount of money. So I just wanted to give you a real-world example of how the municipalities and all of us benefit from this type of incentive. So I think with that, we have two choices. I guess I'll leave it up to the audience. I think it would be better, but you can tell me. We can bring up the City of Kingston. I would love to hear what they have to say. And then we can open it up to questions. Or if you prefer, we can have questions now. And then, what are you thinking? Okay, keep talking. So if I could introduce Brenna Robinson and Mandy Brooke Little, they're the City of Kingston's Economic Development Team. Sam, you want to do your magic? I'm going for the cough drop. I thought I was better. I was getting so much better.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brenna Robinson. I'm the Director of the Office of Economic and Community Development for the City of Kingston. Thank you. I want to thank the county exec for inviting us and Suzanne's team for encouraging us to attend tonight. As she mentioned, we're a much smaller team than theirs. Amanda is the Executive Director of the Kingston Local Development Corporation. In our office, we also have a housing rehab specialist, an administrative assistant, and a grants manager. So Dan Baker, who's on the screen also, was actually talking about pilots in our Common Council Finance Committee meeting tonight, so he was not able to attend. But I'm pleased, thrilled really, to be representing Mayor Gallo and the City of Kingston here tonight. Like the Ulster County, Mayor Gallo, oh geez, Mayor Noble. Like Ulster County, We also have a comprehensive plan that was recently updated. It's called Kingston 2025, and you can find it at the website at the bottom of the screen there. And it provides guidance and strategies for locating new businesses, among other things. We are underway with a zoning update to correlate with that comprehensive plan. So I encourage you to check the city's website, the calendar for those meetings coming up. I borrowed Suzanne's slide because on a much smaller scale and solely focused on the city of Kingston, we do pretty much the same thing. Because we are a much smaller staff, we do depend greatly on our partners in the county and the SBDC and all of the funding agencies and state representatives, as the county does as well. So this city, our mission is obviously we're not a lending agency, we're not in the market of creating jobs, but we are in the market of creating an environment that promotes growth, that fosters growth while also supporting the existing residents and businesses, as Suzanne and the county exec already mentioned. So how can we help you? We help by matching your needs or gaps to resources. We help facilitate navigation of governmental processes and funding applications and so on. And we help you connect with local, county, and regional partners. And regarding matching needs and gaps, do you want to come up and talk about the KLDC products?
Hi, I'm Amanda. We are in the market of giving loans, so feel free to contact us. We formed in 1994 as a nonprofit corporation to help businesses be able to thrive. We do gap financing. We do up to 25% of a project. You do have to have banks involved. You do have to have your own skin in the game. We also do look for collateral. We recently started last year or 2 years ago, I believe. It's a micro enterprise lending program. It's for small businesses that are just starting who can't get help from a bank. If you don't have the credit, they're not going to lend you the money. So we're more apt to do that. It's a smaller amount, but we also have a very small interest rate that we charge. And the interest rate also depends on how much you need to borrow. We have the commercial facade loan program for any blight of any of the commercial businesses. It used to be just the Broadway corridor, but we've opened it up to the entire city of Kingston. So if anybody needs, that's actually right now, we are in the process of revamping it, but it's a 2% loan, and it's up to $10,000. Depending on what you need, they may be able to get more. We have a business park in the city of Kingston, for those of you who don't know. It's on Corporate Drive, it's just off of Delaware Avenue. We have 2 businesses that are located there. We have the ability to put up to 3 more businesses in there, so that it's a 5-site park. If anybody is interested in learning more about the loans or an application, instead of dragging a tree with me, I just brought a sign-up sheet outside. If you wanted to fill it out, I can contact you. We can talk about the loans. I also left business cards out there.
I will leave business cards out there, and please call me for any needs, not just business-related, but residential. We can help with housing issues. We have strong partners, obviously, in the mayor's office, our human rights office, planning, engineering. We're a really close team, so if we are not providing you the service, we can find the person who can help you out. So please contact us. Like I said, our numbers are up there, and thanks again.
Brenda, why don't you sit up and I don't know where Tim went. If anybody has any questions, let's open it up for questions. Really?
Hi. I'm trouble reading the room, but I came here largely because I have a lot of concerns about the boutique hotel project that is in the process of applying for a large pilot from the county. And so as I've been listening, and I mean, I will say that I think what you're doing is wonderful, and I mean, I've been living on and off in Ulster County since the 1960s, so I have seen Kingston rise, fall, and rise again. But I am wondering how this project in particular fits in with the kinds of criteria you're talking about. And I particularly, it was interesting to me that you brought up simulates. I mean, you know, I don't know if I'm the only one in this room who remembers Kevin Sweeney, who started simulates in 1963 in Woodstock. It was a very different kind of undertaking than a New York City developer who, you know, sort of showing up, seeing a trend, buying a lot of real estate, and then turning it into something that may or may not really be what the community needs. And you talk here about the values of the community, and SOPA is doing a survey of its citizens to see what they want and what their values are. So I'm not sure that Simulates is a great example, because that was, you know, Kevin had already lived in Woodstock for 1,000,000 years before he started Simulates. I was playing with his kids in the backyard of his, you know, his house when that company started, and by the time he applied for a pilot, he was, you know, decades into supporting a business, a local business.
So what I'll say, because I don't want to get into the weeds of this particular project, but, and really, you know, I worked with Rebecca Martin to pick tonight to do this after the IDA meeting, because I really didn't want this to be just about that project. But just to kind of talk you through it, so Nan Potter, who works for the Blakeman Hotel project, came and met with us, and we went through this pilot point calculator. And we said, how many permanent new jobs are you going to create? And obviously they're not going to retain any jobs because it's a brand new business. But we talked about the wages. We talked about the local construction workforce. We talked about the environmental sustainability and the community investment. And from this pilot point calculator, we came up with 7 or 8 points. So we came up with a 10-year pilot. What I can say, and I guess, you know, you talk about a survey, I hear from people constantly who want hotels in Uptown Kingston. So it's obviously not 100%, but there is an overwhelming desire in Uptown Kingston for hotels, for people who can walk, who can park their car, stay for the weekend, eat in the restaurants, shop in the shops. And so, you know, I just anecdotally, I hear that all the time. And the surveys of, you know, there's a company that does hotel surveys and where hotels can exist, and Kingston is really under-hoteled right now. So I will just say, you know, there's 3 proposals right now for hotels, and everyone says to me, you know, do you really think like we're going to host 3 hotels? And my answer is, the survey company will tell the hotel owners, and if it can't, they won't all open. So I think that it's also, it's not just because this one is definitely coming, it's not a done deal. 1 second, Sam, and then I'm going to call on you. But I just want to say that, you know, this is how it happened. This is the process that we went through. So they came in, filled out the pilot point calculator, cleared that they were eligible for a 10-year pilot. Then they filled out the application, and then it goes from there. Then we had the public hearing. We had a public meeting, followed by a public hearing, followed by another public meeting. And I would also say that, you know, if this criteria, if you think that there's other things that the IDA should be incentivizing, it's not going to be retroactive, but proactively and going forward, the IDA would want to hear from you. Sam?
I just wanted to comment. I've been in economic development in this area for many, many years. And you know, tourism is really what drives the economy here to a very large degree. And, you know, companies like Simulate or MarkerTech or some of the other manufacturing companies, they're there and they have a niche in the economy. But you know, tourism is probably the top in terms of what brings people to the area and then supports all the other businesses. So I'm not against hotels in that respect. Plus, I worked on a huge project, you know, with the IDA, and ultimately they got tremendous advantage from the pilot. But the other thing is I've seen, in my experience, IDAs claw back their incentives. If people don't live up to what they sign up for at the beginning, then they're not going to get the benefit from the program. And a lot of people, make stuff up at the beginning, and it comes back to haunt them after the fact.